everybody, and welcome to another episode of the It's the Pictures podcast. I'm your host, Max Colville, and this is episode 197. Today, I'm by myself today. We discussed last time that Evan was going to take this week off, and it's going to be a shorter episode than usual because I don't want to keep everybody listening to me for too long. But I wanted to make sure we kept up our bi-weekly schedule, and I have some news to share as well as reviews of new releases like The Life of Chuck and 28 Years Later. But it's beginning to be... I'm recording this on Monday, June 23rd, and it's a scorcher outside, you know? We're in the middle of a heat wave, the summer movie season. We're deep in the middle of it now. Most of Evan's movies has come out. I have an update on the summer movie game, and it looks like I'm gonna have some traction to make up, given how good How You're Training Your Dragon has done in its release in the last 2 weeks. But before I get into the reviews and updating the box office game, let's talk about the news. One of the big news stories that I saw the other day was that the Highlander movie reboot is moving ahead, casting some of the important roles. Of course, this is the one that stars Henry Cavill as the lead, and playing, I guess, Connor McLeod's character. Maybe he'll play somebody else, but like that kind of same role. And it's actually being directed by Chad Stahelski. He was the director of the John Wick franchise, those 4 movies. So this has the opportunity to be pretty good. And the news coming out of the wire the other day was that Oscar-winning actor Russell Crowe will join the cast, and he'll play the role that Sean Connery previously played. If you remember, Highlander came out in 1986 and starred Christopher Lambert and Connery, and it's like this battle between ancient warriors who can't die unless they're like beheaded in battle, and then their power goes into the person that killed them. And so in that movie, they had the villain. He would go around killing countless foes and enemies, and he'd be super powerful. And and it's a pretty fun action movie. I think that it's really elevated by the soundtrack, which was done by Queen. And if you listen to it, like, there's songs on it like Who Wants to Live Forever, and it just like elevated the material quite a bit. I wonder who they'll have doing the score for this proposed Highlander reboot. But with Henry Cavill on board and Russell Crowe, at least the casting is coming together well, and I'm interested to see how it actually comes out, and if it goes ahead. And I think it has the opportunity to be pretty good. The other news I saw kind of plays on the 28 Days Later review that I have coming up, and it was that director Danny Boyle had sat down for a long interview with The Guardian. And he went on to talk about some of the creative choices that went into this new trilogy of films. The new 28 Years Later movie is the first movie in a proposed trilogy. The second movie is already in the can and is supposedly coming out in January, and is directed by Candyman director Nia DaCosta. And Danny Boyle's interview is really interesting. He goes through a lot of different details. But one of the things that's been grabbing headlines out of the long interview is that Boyle said that he can't imagine that he'd be able to direct Slumdog Millionaire this day because of cultural appropriation. And he goes on to say that's exactly the way it should be. I guess he feels like maybe at the time he got away with something that, like, now it just wouldn't make sense. It should be someone else who would direct that movie. And that's really nice to hear from him, because like I thought at first it'd be because like no one would give that movie that kind of budget to be successful, but it's nice to hear him acknowledging that his viewpoint of the material, it was certainly different than someone who would be closer. Boyle famously directed like the Transpotting movies, Steve Jobs, Sunshine. He has a very varied career. Like I like a lot of his movies. There's this movie that came out a few years ago that I absolutely loathed, and it was Boyle directed this movie called Yesterday, and it, like imagines that like an alternate reality where the Beatles didn't exist, and like this one guy remembers that they did exist and remembers all their music, so he's able to like play it and get famous off of it. And I don't know. At first, I was like, "Oh, I could play around with that. I can find it funny," but there's just like so many logic hurdles that the movie goes to that I absolutely hated. uh, it's one of those movies that almost like tainted Danny Boyle for me forever. But I'm glad that he's gone on to do other movies, and I can just kind of forget that that ever happened. But if you want to read an insightful interview with director Danny Boyle, he said that, like I said, he sat down with The Guardian, and you can go ahead and look that up and read through it at your leisure. The next news came out of nowhere for me, and I guess Netflix is getting ready to showcase its fall slate. There's already some word that maybe like Noah Baumbach's new film will probably premiere at Venice, and we'll talk about Venice in a little bit. But they also announced that they are distributing the new film from Catherine Bigelow, A House of Dynamite, and it's going to get a theatrical run and then appear on Netflix. And I'm kind of excited about this. Like, Catherine Bigelow has been like hit or miss for me too lately. I liked Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. I didn't bother to see Detroit. I think that was her last feature, and it got kind of mixed reviews. But this one sounds a little bit more interesting. It stars Idris Elba, Rebecca Ferguson, Jared Harris, Tracy Letts, Anthony Ramos, Moses Ingram, and Jason Clarke, among others. So it will be her first movie since Detroit, and that was in 2017. So it's been a good 8 years since her last feature. We'll see what that one's all about when it comes out later this year and hits a streamer. But like I said, I wanted to talk about Venice a little bit, and Variety already has like their previews of what's going to hit Venice. Venice is, of course, one of the big 3 film festivals that happen late August, early September, along with Telluride and Toronto. But Venice has like these starry premieres, I guess. Not that the other two don't, but it's all about the biggest show they could put on, for the Venice Film Festival. And Variety says like some films are a pretty sure bet to show up in Venice, like Dwayne Johnson's new movie, The Smashing Machine, Luca Guadagnino's new movie, After the Hunt, starring Julia Roberts, and Emma Stone and Yorgos Lanthimos' latest collaboration should all be in Venice. I already mentioned the Noah Baumbach and Catherine Bigelow. Those are also 2 movies that might show up there. Variety goes on to say maybe even Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein could be in Venice first, but it's hard to imagine like that not also showing up in Toronto. Guillermo loves to film in Toronto, and he even though Shape of Water showed in Venice first, he brought it over to Toronto, and it had a big rollout there. But things are starting to come together. It should be a exciting fall season, and there was already some really great movies that were shown at the Cannes Film Festival this year that I'm excited to see. So that should be pretty good. Okay, and one more before I get into the summer movie game. it was announced the other day that Criterion has the rights to Wong Kar Wai's series Blossom Shanghai. It came out like a year or two ago in, I think, Hong Kong, and it hasn't had like uh, a translation or official release since then. It's like 30 episodes long, and I was like desperately trying to see this show because I love his work, and it's been a good amount of years since Wong Kar Wai's last feature, The Grandmaster. So I was really excited to hear that Criterion has acquired the rights to show it on the Criterion channel, and that will certainly be a big get for them and for fans of Wong Kar Wai to actually see the show internationally. Like I guess like I've heard like the reviews on the show aren't really ecstatic, but new Wong Kar Wai is new Wong Kar Wai, and for those unfamiliar with his work, he directed In the Mood for Love and Chungking Express, among many other features that um, just like seminal movies in my life. Like they were like mid '90s, early 2000s, and I include those two among the short list of my favorite movies ever. So always excited to see more work from him. All right, now we're going to move on to the summer movie game. And it's picking up a lot since the last time we talked because Evan's How to Train Your Dragon remake came out. And I think it's already grossed more money domestically than the animated counterpart when it came out. Its total gross is now at 160 million after a second weekend in opening, and that is already almost beating Evan's highest movies, where he was Mission Impossible and Thunderbolts previously. So that was a great bargain where he got it. I think it was his fourth film selected. Should have been much higher for either one of us as opposed to being down there on that list so far. But Universal has made a big push to make the How to Train Your Dragon franchise even more part of their brand. They, of course, opened the theme park recently that's dedicated to How to Train Your Dragon, and on the strength of that animated trilogy, making these live action films. I think they've already confirmed that the second animated movie is being adapted as well. So a lot more dragons to come. I think it's a pretty beloved franchise. I don't know like if it's grown a lot in the years or since Universal's put a lot of work into it, because like I said, those three animated features never really broke the bank in terms of like box office, but looks like this live action one's doing just fine, and it's right there next to Lilo and Stitch as family entertainment for this summer that's familiar and families know what they're going to get. The next thing that came out recently over the weekend was Elio, and that was the Pixar movie where I guess like it was appropriate where I picked it because it was my last pick, and word came out of the weekend that it was like the lowest grossing Pixar opening weekend ever, and I kind of expected that due to the promotional campaign and how botched it was, and just the movie overall didn't seem like it had a lot going for it, but it did I guess like a respectable 20 million opening, which I need the movie to do better than the 50 million that Karate Kid Legends currently has. I mean, that's the bar for the fifth movie selected for both of us. So I certainly think it will make that. I'm sure Disney Pixar thinks that it's gonna have legs into the summer and be one of those like family movies. I mean, like for animated fare, like the only movie I can think of that's competition is like something like the Smurfs or The Bad Guys too, and those movies are coming out later. So I don't think like either will really have a problem. I also don't think it's like something that people are gonna rush out to. I know myself, I wasn't like, oh, I need to go see this with my family. It's more like, oh well, if it's a rainy day, I can take my child to go see it, and I know it will be a new experience as opposed to going to see dragons and knowing exactly what to expect from the movie. Outside of those two movies, I think so. Looking at Evan's chart, he has 4 movies that have opened already and are collecting box office. Mine, I have the 2, Lilo and Stitch and Elio. Coming up this weekend is the opening of F1. So we'll see how that one does. I think it has like a pretty open road for a big opening, considering Dragons is probably going to still be demanding some of the audience from the families, and you don't have like many other big fare coming out. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that it will do all right. I don't know. Certainly, as the 4th picked film, I don't expect it to do anywhere near the business of How to Train Your Dragon. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, we still have Jurassic World, Fantastic Four, and Superman coming up in the upcoming weeks. So still some big box office movies coming in the next few weeks. So we'll see how everything shakes out in the end. Currently, Evan has let's see. His movies have a box office total of 576 million. I rounded the numbers so let's keep it even, and mine is at 407 million. So I'm almost 200 million behind, but like I said, I still have Fantastic Four, Jurassic World, and F1 left, where he just has Superman. So we'll see. I'm pretty hopeful I can make it back, but that's the case of what happened when I picked a lot of movies that were coming out later in the season, and he picked a lot of May, June movies. So we'll see. Maybe when we come back in 2 weeks, it will look way different, or like I know we'll be heading into, we'll be after Jurassic World opens, because I think the next scheduled recording is after the 4th of July. So that will tell a lot of what's going to happen with the box office game this summer. All right, so before I get into what I've been watching, which will be like an expanded segment this week because of, I didn't really have a feature, and I'm gonna review 3 movies that I've recently watched. The Life of Chuck, 28 years later, and an older movie that's available on the Criterion channel right now, The Talented Mr. Ripley, featuring Matt Damon in the lead role. So I'm going to pause and do some station identification before we head over to the second half of the show. As always, if you want to follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, Letterboxd, we're at It's the Pick Pod or at It's the Pictures. You can look us up, give us a follow, let us know what you like about the show. Maybe a movie that you would like us to cover one time, or a topic that you'd like. We'll be happy to consider it and add it to the lineup. If you want to follow me, you can follow me mostly on Blue Sky these days. I'm at maxcolville.com, or you can look me up, Max Colville. You can email the podcast at itsthepictures@gmail.com. Evan can be found at Real Recon on most social media services, and also on his other podcast, Spoiler Piece Theater. And let's see, what else? Oh yeah, if you like the show, please review us. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you review us on those places, it will help our show reach a bigger audience, and we get to continue to do what we love, which is talk about movies and share our thoughts with you. On the newsletter, most recently, I cross-posted a article from our friend Kristen Lopez. She wrote the book, But Have You Read the Book? Which kind of matched classic movies up to their literary sources. It was fun little exercise, and I think that she has a sequel to that book coming out eventually, so keep a lookout for that. I shared a cross post of her newsletter. She has a Substack newsletter as well, the Film Maven, and she's pretty active on there. She's putting her reviews of the latest films that she's seen and a lot of her thoughts. So I recommend giving her a follow on Substack if you haven't. As for the second thing that I posted recently on the itsthepictures.substack.com, I reposted an old podcast that former co-host John Gilpatrick and I recorded on the James Bond Sean Connery films. Those films recently got re-released on 4K, so people would be able to watch them with HDR and Dolby Vision for the first time. And I thought that the podcast would make a great companion to that new physical release. So if you just like those Bond movies, or if you recently picked that up on 4K, it makes for an excellent companion to those releases. All right, so I just got back from a short breather, but I know you've probably just been listening along. So from me to you, welcome back, or welcome to the second half of the show, where I'm gonna do some reviews of some recent releases, as well as a library, a catalog release. That's what they call those things. The Talented Mr. Ripley that's currently showing on Criterion Channel. So the other day, I caught up with The Life of Chuck, and this is the movie that won the TIFF People's Choice this year. That was a huge deal for the movie. Normally, movies that win the TIFF People's Choice get a robust marketing campaign and go on to be nominated for Best Picture. I know in years past, we had movies like The Fabelmans, you had American Fiction, Green Book. I think Three Billboards was a winner one year. Those movies all went on to be nominated for Best Picture or win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. But I guess this movie was a little bit harder to promote, or the expectations were a little bit more modest for it. This is a Mike Flanagan directed film. And he's directing it off of a short story that Stephen King made. And Flanagan's no stranger to Stephen King material, so maybe he was a perfect fit for this. And yeah, it's a weird little movie. Maybe that's why the expectations were smaller for it. Neon released it in I don't know how many theaters. I'm trying to give you a theater number, but I'm like, I don't know how many theaters they released in it. I just know it was a modest release, and they used a big word of mouth campaign from Stephen King and Mike Flanagan and Tom Hiddleston and Mark Hamill to really try to bring an audience to it. And the movie's in 3 parts, and it kind of starts with a focus on Chiwetel Ejiofor and Karen Gillan. And they're like this couple, they're like 2 different people. They are divorced people because they used to be together, and they're kind of experiencing the end of the world. And the only thing that like keeps on existing or rolling with the punches why they're living in the world is that they keep on seeing these messages for thank you, Chuck, for 39 years. And it's just really odd that like there's billboards for it, there's television ads, and everything is happening, and no one can really know why that these ads are happening or why this celebration is happening when everything is so bleak around them. The movie eventually shows its hand in the second chapter, following Tom Hiddleston as Chuck, and it's kind of like that. At that point, it's kind of just showing Hiddleston living and enjoying his life, doing some spontaneity that maybe he hadn't done before, and just reveling in it. And it isn't until the third chapter that everything comes together and everything starts to make complete sense. And it's kind of hard for me to talk about this movie without like totally spoiling what happens. So I'm not going to. All I'm going to tell you is that it was a very difficult movie to promote. And Tom Hiddleston's really not in it for all that much. So at least each segment gives you someone to hold on to, because on the third segment, Mark Hamill really takes the lead, if you will, or like is the familiar face for that section. And I guess at the end of the day, that the movie has a pretty hopeful message, like live your life to the fullest and uh, don't have any regrets. And if there's something that you want to do, just go ahead and do it. And I can see why audiences kind of fell in love with it in Toronto. It was probably just like, oh, breath of fresh air, and makes everybody feel pretty great after watching it. But yeah, I guess it's a different outcome for TIFF's People's Choice winner. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad film or it wasn't worthy of being Best Picture. It just, this is a different road for it, and I hope that finds an audience. I hope that eventually, even if this theater run wasn't really robust or people didn't find it in the theater, maybe 10, 15 years from now, people will find it and really fall in love with it and cherish it. The next movie that I've seen pretty recently had to be, because I'm talking to you the Monday after its release, is 28 Years Later. And like I said at the top, this is the movie directed by Danny Boyle. He previously directed movies like Trainspotting, 28 Days Later, and he's returned to the franchise. And by making it like 28 years later, he pretty much opened himself to take any direction he wanted. He reteamed with writer Alex Garland. Garland himself is a director who directed movies like Ex Machina, Men, and Civil War. And they have a good working relationship together, so I was excited what they would do this time. And since 28 years later lives in the same world, it comes as no surprise then that like they're still infected around who've been infected by the rage virus. And but it's kind of developed into London or the UK is kind of like separated from the world, and there's like no way for the people there to get off the island or in. It's like they're contaminated, and the world like uses resources to keep everybody there. No one gets in, no one gets out. And there have been like some civilizations that kind of evolve from that. One of them is on this little island, and Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Jamie, who's a father who kind of come of age on this island. He's, you know, he's they have different classes, and he's known as a hunter who goes out and hunts for different items that they could use, and also attacks the rage infected people when he needs to. And the movie starts like as a rite of passage where he's taking his son out. His son is played by Alfie Williams, and his name is Spike, for his first hunt. And Spike is a little young for it. He's 12, not the usual 15 or 16, but with the two of them out there, they feel they'll be pretty good. And they go out for the hunt. And it's within this first 25, 30 minutes that the movie kind of plays into the promise of the trailers of being like this heavy-duty action violence extravaganza. There's like some really cinematic rage-infected kills. Of course, Garland and Boyle kind of like look at what Garland did with Civil War and with its violence, and kind of use this camera system that like where you'll see an infected attacked in the front, and then the camera will do almost like a 360 spin and see where the impact comes out. So, like, say if an arrow went through the head of an infected, it would go in at one angle, and then the camera would go 180 degrees, and you'd see where the arrow would come out at the other end. And it's really clever graphic stuff. It's pretty thrilling and disturbing at the same time. There's also another underlying plot with this movie where Spike is caring for his mother, Isla or Isla. I forget like how they pronounce her name, but she's played by actress Jodie Comer, and she has some kind of illness, and she's bedridden, and she has fits where she loses her memory, and she just isn't all there. And while Spike and his father, Jamie, were out on their hunt, Spike kind of noticed a campfire in the distance, and he learns from his father that that fire is probably the result of a doctor who was a general practitioner. His name was Dr. Kelson, and he kind of went insane. And even though he might have some knowledge of how to treat people and be a doctor, he's just like not really safe to go visit. Well, Spike doesn't really care. He just wants to save his mother. So he kind of escapes his village with his mother to go out and find this doctor and see if the doctor can provide help for his mother. And becomes kind of like a travel road movie across a very dangerous environment. So the movie's a little bit different than what the ads were showing, but nevertheless, I was enthralled. It's easily one of my favorite movies that I've seen in 2025. While some of the places it goes are a little odd, a lot of people have been pointing to the ending, which kind of like is tonally different than the rest of the movie, and maybe exists to showcase another chapter that might come down the road. I think it works. It's a bizarre little thing. It makes you feel disoriented, but maybe that's what you need to feel in this kind of post-apocalyptic rage-infected world. I think Boyle and Garland kind of knocked it out of the park, and I'm excited to see the next movie in the franchise. And I hope it does well enough so that Boyle and Garland can team up and do a third movie that would tie everything together. Okay. And then finally, I caught up with The Talented Mr. Ripley. And this has been on my like watch list for a long time. Certainly after the Emerald Fennell movie Saltburn came out, even a few years ago, it was on my list due to the comparisons. And having seen The Talented Mr. Ripley now, that those comparisons weren't too far off at all. This one is another adaptation of the Patricia Highsmith novel, and it stars Matt Damon as Tom Ripley, who, he works odd jobs, but his greatest gift is probably being in the right place at the right time, and then being able to impersonate people. And so one afternoon he's playing classical piano at a function, and he meets this old guy who's like, "Oh, I need you. Oh, you went to the same college as my son. I need you to go to Rome and convince him to come back home, and I'll pay for your trip. No questions asked." And of course, Ripley, having no life or function of his own, is able to say, "Yeah, I'll go," and pretend to be this guy's long lost friend or something. And when he gets there, he meets up with Dickie Greenleaf, who is played by Jude Law, who, he's fantastic in this. I really like Jude Law as an actor, but I could see where people would have seen this movie and been like, "Oh yeah, he's fantastic." And I think like a few years after Talented Mr. Ripley, he was also in AI, where he was also in the supporting role and fantastic in that. So I've always liked Jude Law as an actor. And when he's there, he has a longtime girlfriend played by Gwyneth Paltrow. Her name is Marge. And, you know, he's kind of like, he doesn't let anybody in and he doesn't know what he wants. This being Dickie Greenleaf. And he just kind of goes with the flow. He has all this money. He doesn't have any worries. And he's just in high society and having a good time. And for a long time, that's good. Until it's not. And he decides that, you know, even though he enjoyed having Tom around and they could chum it up together, he was kind of tired of him. And giving his personality, he kind of let people in for a period of time, and then he grew tired of them and kind of tossed them aside. And certainly that would have been okay for some people, or they would have gotten over it or went on with their lives. For Tom, that was never going to be okay. He'd have to leave Rome. He'd have to go back to his humdrum life, and he didn't really want any of that. And he makes decisions that ultimately make his life a lot harder. But, you know, he does what he has to do in order to continue living the lifestyle he wants. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Like I said, it's tremendously cast. Like, I didn't even talk about Cate Blanchett or Philip Seymour Hoffman also being part of the cast, which is just crazy. This was directed by Anthony Minghella. I guess it was coming off of his Oscar wins for not that. What was it called? The one that the Seinfeld made fun of. Let's see, what is it called? The English Patient. That's it. And I just think, like, I haven't seen The English Patient in years, if I've ever seen it, but talented Mr. Ripley certainly earns its reputation. It's a wonderfully casted movie and entertaining throughout its lengthy runtime. I think it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. I've only seen the pilot of the recent Netflix Ripley series, which is also an adaptation of the Patricia Highsmith novel, and I think that's like 7 or 8 episodes, and it's a black and white, very stylistic, and I don't know if I necessarily need to see that now, but it'd be interesting to see how the movie and the TV show kind of play off each other. But yeah, talented Mr. Ripley. That one's on the Criterion Channel if you've never seen it before or looking for something to watch. But I guess that will do it for us here at the It's the Pictures podcast. How did I do? Oh, I almost made it to 40 minutes. Like I said, this is a little shorter episode because I was on my own and still wanted to give you an episode bi-weekly. We did some news, the update of the movie game, and some summer movie reviews as well. So we got you caught up with some of those movies here on It's the Pictures. Come back in 2 weeks. We'll have another episode. Hopefully Evan will have returned. We can continue the summer movie game, and we'll have another exciting episode for you here. All right, have a nice day, everyone. Take care. Bye.